December 31st, 1932, 89 years ago tonight, there was a special dance at Cafe Vienna in Haifa, the beautiful port city in northern Israel, then part of British Mandate Palestine. This New Year's Eve special dance, as the advertisement promoted, promised dancing from 9 p.m. till 3 in the morning, as well as attractions, decorations, confetti, and serpentines, which I had to look up and means belly dancers. 60 miles down the coast in the new city of Tel Aviv, named after the famous Theodore Herzl book that dreamt of a Jewish state, the Mugabe Theater, there you see it, brand new and festive, anchoring the art scene of Tel Aviv. Also hosted a festive New Year's Eve celebration with entertainment, surprises, entertainment, and a splendid dance orchestra. While early European Jewish immigrants to Israel were often inspired by labor Zionism, the return to the land, new Jewish immigrants, especially during the time of the British Mandate, brought a more cosmopolitan lifestyle than their early Jewish pioneers. They brought European manners and customs to the emerging Jewish homeland, including new styles of dress, new foods, and new ways of rejoicing. They also brought dances, parties, and galas, including an annual celebration on December 31st called the Sylvester Tag, or Sylvester. Sylvester was a big deal for many post-Enlightenment, pre-Holocaust Jewish communities in Europe. Here is Haaretz reporter Moshe Angerfeld from Vienna in 1926. The most merry holiday here is the 31st of December, Sylvester night, the Christian New Year. Here in Vienna, it is also called the Jewish holiday. Most of the Jews of Vienna don't completely celebrate our New Year's, Rosh Hashanah. Everyone sits in his store and tends to his business and doesn't have time to visit a synagogue. But it's different on the night of December 31st. The pockets of the Jews of Vienna are then filled with income. Their hearts are full of happiness. And most importantly, the holiday isn't spent by the people of the city in prayer, crying and screaming, but with a merry cup of wine in the cafe and bars and the happy sounds of singers, musicians, and gay dancing. Sylvester, as some of you might know, is the day of the feast of Pope Sylvester, who died on December 31st and served as the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, from the year 314 to 335. There's little known about Pope Sylvester, though there are some who accuse him of being deeply anti-Semitic. According to the Hungarian-born activist and journalist Fenrik Josef Jambor, Sylvester is the one who turned the heart of Constantine towards Christianity and anti-Semitism. He presented the emperor with an anti-Semitic diatribe, abbreviated sections which are held today at the British Museum. Jewish historians have found that the condition of the Jews in the Byzantine Empire worsened due to Sylvester's actions. But to many Jews in Europe and eventually in Israel, the origins of the day of Sylvester didn't matter too much. The New Year's Eve parties in Europe and among the secular Jewish immigrants of the 1920s and 1930s in Israel flourished. Sylvester was an excuse to have a good time and enjoy. The boulevards of Tel Aviv could feel like Vienna, the cafes of Haifa like Geneva. The newspaper, the Israeli newspaper, the pre-Israeli Palestinian newspaper, Doar Hayom, reported from Jerusalem on New Year's Day 1936. The signs of the holiday were visible at the hairdressers in the morning. The public began to get haircuts and have their hair washed. On no other day of the year have the hairdressers of Jerusalem seen this much traffic on weekday mornings. In the afternoon, it became busier. The manicurists, beauticians, and all those in the business of cosmetics improved their balance sheets handsomely on the last day of 1935. After that, the traffic on the street began. The movie theaters were half empty. On the other hand, the crowds made their way to the King David Hotel, to the cafes that celebrated Sylvester, and even to the German restaurant, which was full. Of course, the English and Germans preferred to greet the new year with their families or in a private ball or intimate groups. But our brothers and sisters of the children of Israel expressed their happiness over the ending of the year in public and with excitement. As you can probably imagine, the presence of Sylvester parties in the Holy Land irked many people who thought that the celebration was inappropriate. In 1934, the City Council of Tel Aviv passed a resolution to ban New Year's Eve celebrations, stating, "The Tel Aviv Municipal Council views the foreign custom of Sylvester parties as absolutely undesirable, contrary to the spirits and traditions of the people of Israel, and requesting that all coffee houses and large event hall owners in the city not organize Sylvester parties." Just so you think, it wasn't just the secular cities of Tel Aviv and Haifa. The chief rabbinate and the municipal committee of Jerusalem accused the New Year's Eve revelers of blasphemy. As the end of the civilian year draws to a close, they wrote, "To our regret, many of our brothers engage in celebrating a holiday of the diaspora that is both in content and in form, foreign to the spirit of Israel. The wild custom of Sylvester celebrations, organized by Jews in the land of Israel, has invaded us, particularly in the last year, and from year to year, more engage in idolatry." Sylvester isn't a big deal in Israel these days, though it's often still called Sylvester. In fact, the first time I had ever heard New Year's Eve called Sylvester was when I was in Israel on December 31st. But pre-COVID, there would be parties in the hopping sections of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, but on the whole, it's not a widely celebrated or marked festival. When it doesn't fall on Shabbat, like it does this year, work and school go on as planned on January 1st. If anything, over the past 3 decades, with the continued rise of Russians in Israel, in some neighborhoods, one is more apt to see the observance of the highly Russian New Year celebration called Novi God. Conceived by the communist regime in the former Soviet Union as a non-religious New Year's holiday, Novi God nonetheless borrows from traditional Christmas symbols. A bearded elderly gentleman and his companion snow maiden, fir trees decorated with tinsel and lights, gifts under the tree, and family dinners. In 2018, then Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decided to make a play for the Russian vote in one of the Israeli elections with a commercial that included a toast to Novi God. But what about us? How do we mark the end of the secular year? Ball drops, champagne toasts, tuxedos? Certainly, COVID and Omicron has diminished the joy of the flip of the calendar. Nevertheless, I'm thrilled you're with us for Shabbat and highly discourage New Year's Eve parties or dinners this year. I might discourage them every year, but especially this year. I hope you have a festive and safe New Year's Eve, whether it's a ball drop or college football or a day in PJs or a nice glass of wine. There is no reason not to find some joy and delight in the secular calendar. I love receiving the year-end cards from old friends, and I enjoy the reflections on 2021's best music or books or movies. I'm also really thrilled we have our holidays, and New Year's Eve is no substitute for Rosh Hashanah. However, I believe the secular New Year can serve as an opportunity for any of us, Jew and non-Jew alike, to reflect on the past year and make some New Year's resolutions for the coming one. I also know that traditionally, New Year's for many is one of the most lonely nights of the year. To many, the ball drop is not celebratory, but filled with promises unkept and resolutions unmet. Even the countdown sometimes feels rotten, an affirmation that we are missing something. If you love New Year's Eve, I promise I'm not knocking you. Enjoy with gusto. But I'm sure everyone will agree that one resolution we at Beth Am can continue to tackle is our continued commitment to combating loneliness. Many of us know about the loneliness epidemic in this country. I've preached about it before. Even before COVID, 3 in 5 Americans reported feelings of loneliness and isolation. The last 20 months of shutdowns and isolation have exacerbated the loneliness pandemic. Loneliness impacts people of all ages, genders, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Even normal times, we certainly know that proximity to people is not a cure for loneliness. Dr. Carla Parsonotto and her colleagues at USCSF reported that most lonely individuals are married, live with others, and are not clinically depressed. Remember F. Scott Fitzgerald in The Great Gatsby? At the enchanted metropolitan twilight, I felt a haunting loneliness sometimes and felt it in others. Loneliness occurs in the very beginning of the Bible. It's actually the first human emotion of the Torah. Adam, living in Eden, was lonely. God saw Adam's loneliness, and in the second chapter of Genesis declared, Lo tov heyot ha'adam levado. It is not good for man to be alone. Abraham, Aaron, David, Ruth, and Miriam all faced profound loss in their life. Joseph struggled alone in both a pit in the wilderness and a prison in Egypt. Leah and Hagar and Bathsheba lived the struggles of loveless marriages. Isaac felt the isolation of old age. Moses was the final one of his generation. Throughout our sacred texts, loneliness and isolation is a common thread in the narrative. So back to our Beth Am New Year's resolution. An article in last week's New York Times offered a simple and profound step that can help combat loneliness, one that it turns out Beth Am is pretty good at. The article titled, An Overlooked Cure for Loneliness. Science tells us the solution may lie in what we do for others, not ourselves, highlights the therapeutic element of volunteering as a pathway to purpose and meaning in our lives. In a study of 10,000 volunteers in Britain, about 2/3 agreed that their volunteering had helped them feel less isolated, particularly those ages 18 to 34. And it's not just for millennials. We know that among older adults, social isolation and loneliness can be associated with higher rates of mortality, depression, cognitive decline, and experts say that volunteering not only helps people feel less lonely, but it can improve physical well-being. A 5-year study of more than 800 people in Detroit found that helping others who don't live with you can act as a buffer against the negative effects of stress. Although the study participants encountered stressful life events, illness, job loss, financial difficulties, those who spent time doing tasks for others, like errands or childcare and housework, were less likely to die than those who had not helped others. How about this one? Research suggests that volunteering consistently is what appears to reap the most benefits. And in one study, widowers age 51 and above who volunteered 2 or more hours a week felt less lonely and were no lonelier than the married volunteers. Volunteering, an antidote to loneliness. We have lots of amazing groups committed to deep Tzedek work. Our community organizing team working to build relationships locally, our refugee awareness team working with local organizations to help new refugees to America, our Dayenu Circle raising awareness about climate justice. Here's one you can do right away. Our Pursue Justice group, committed to fighting and preserving our democracy, is leading a nationwide fast next Tuesday to protest and protect the right to vote, or to protest assaults on the right to vote and to protect the right to vote. Certainly those places are wonderful starts if you're looking to strengthen your SEDEC muscle in 2022. We also have direct service volunteer opportunities, including helping at the Community Services Agency Food Pantry in Mountain View, or serving at our monthly breakfast at a family shelter with Life Moves. We work with the Jewish Coalition for Literacy and Learning Home Volunteers, one of our Equal Start partners, to help instill a love of reading. These are all very COVID cautious places and filled with safe opportunities, and some of them are even virtual. It doesn't have to be nonprofit volunteering. We need greeters and letter writers at Beth Am. Did you know that, led by our board member, Emily Naglenkar, a group of bakers have been delivering challahs once a month throughout the pandemic? Like to bake? We'll connect you. And if you find rewarding volunteer opportunities through your office or neighborhood or school, terrific. Maybe you can invite a friend. Like all resolutions, start slow, see what feels right to you. If you skip a day or a week, no worries. As Val Walker, author of the book 400 Friends, But Who Can I Call, writes, as long as we care about others in the communities we live in, we can free ourselves from the grip of isolation and loneliness. Volunteer helps us grow a sense of community, a sense of volunteering helps us grow a sense of community, a sense of place, a sense of belonging. Gives us the opportunity to create little sanctuaries with each other. Let's not shy away. I certainly don't believe that volunteering is the panacea to the loneliness epidemic. I know it takes more than that, but I am inspired. Beth Am is a bold and wonderful and caring place. We can do this. So 2022, the year of fighting loneliness, the year of helping out. It's gotta be easier than losing weight. So Shabbat Shalom and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Rabbi Prosnit. You